Jen, you know Michelle. Nice to meet you. Great granddaughter of and then you're welcome. Okay, so you guys are good right here. I'm gonna also have them here. Okay, and then the panelists will be right here. So you go where we have that as well. And then Michelle will be standing here, giving some brief instructions of what you're looking at. So you can stand here as well.
In the unlikely event of an emergency, please take a moment now to locate the exit nearest to you. There are exits on either side and at the rear of the Ecolab Auditorium. If an evacuation is necessary, please move quickly and calmly to the nearest exit and leave the building. Thank you, and please enjoy the presentation.
Good morning. My name is Amy Bracewell, and it is my privilege to serve as the National Park Service Superintendent here in Hyde Park. We will start this morning with the national anthem and the Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have Molly Shee? Is she with us? Okay, so I'll give you instructions. We are honored today to have the Haviland Middle School music program with us. The music for the national anthem was arranged by their chorus teacher, Mr. Ryan Wade, in special dedication to this celebration today. After the national anthem, 7th grader Molly Shee will come up to the podium and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. For those who are able, please stand. Molly, come on up.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Thank you to Molly and to all of our student musicians. Welcome everyone to this momentous occasion. It is an honor for Hyde Park, New York to be chosen as the ceremonial launch of the new Eleanor Roosevelt Quarter. Released through the U.S. Mint's American Women Quarters program, Eleanor Roosevelt is being celebrated for her lifelong dedication to civil rights, inclusivity, and human rights for people around the world. She called Hyde Park home and not only hosted many world leaders here in this community, but also launched worldwide policies and actions that have changed our world for the better. Her work with the United Nations and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights continues to be a guiding star for human dignity, freedom, and rights across the globe. I want to take a moment and recognize our event sponsors and special guests. The American Women's Quarter program is led by the United States Mint. I want to thank them for choosing Hyde Park to host this event and for their support and enthusiasm in the release of this quarter. The National Women's History Museum has also been instrumental in rolling out the quarters year after year. The FDR Presidential Library and Museum is a strong partner in everything we do here in Hyde Park, and today is no exception. Thank you, Bill, and your team for being here today. And finally, I'd like to recognize the Culinary Institute of America for hosting the event. The Culinary Institute is a landmark in our community, and we are grateful to be able to share in this celebration with them. We also have some distinguished guests in the audience today. Rose Hill, representing Congressman Pat Ryan, is joining us today. Thank you for being here. Donna Verteramo from New York State Senator Michelle Hinchy's office is also here today. We also have a large contingency of the Roosevelt family here. I would like to especially recognize Christopher DuPont Roosevelt, Anne Roosevelt, and Nancy Roosevelt Ireland for their participation in the planning of this event and their dedication to elevating Eleanor in this special way. Thank you. It is also very amazing to have so many students in our audience today experiencing history in the making. When I call out your school, please clap as loud as you can to show us that you are here. We have the Morse Elementary School. We've got Krieger Elementary School. And we've got the Haviland Middle School. I think they have an edge being on the stage. It is now my pleasure to introduce Perrin Roosevelt Ireland. Perrin and her family have strong ties to her great-grandmother Eleanor. She continues to play an active role in the legacy of Eleanor and President Roosevelt. She serves as a board member with the Roosevelt Institute and as a visual storyteller for natural resources and our world around us. It is my pleasure to welcome Perrin Roosevelt Ireland.
Just adjusting for Roosevelt height. Good morning. My name is Perrin Roosevelt Ireland, and I'm Eleanor Roosevelt's great-granddaughter. I'm delighted to represent the Roosevelt family in celebrating with you here today, Eleanor Roosevelt's likeness being printed on the U.S. quarter. On behalf of the Roosevelt family, I'd like to thank the United States Mint team, especially Director Ventris Gibson and Michelle Thompson, and everyone at the U.S. Mint who worked so hard on this, as well as the artist who brought this coin to life. I'm grateful to the National Women's History Museum, the Smithsonian American Women's History Museum, the Bipartisan Women's Caucus for their work on this project, and Secretary Janet Yellen for choosing Eleanor. I also want to give special thanks to Alita Black for her help in the recommendation process. I feel it is no small act of resistance to flood laundromats, parking meters, and vending machines with the faces of women who exhibited righteous defiance, particularly in a moment when it is becoming illegal in some sections of the United States to look critically at our history and to teach these lessons to the next generations, the keepers of our democracy's future. We know about these women because they expanded beyond the conscriptions placed upon them. From them, we can learn about our nation's complex and troubled past, successful strategies for resisting oppression and fascism, and tools for participating in the ongoing project of building our democracy, which must be studied more closely now than ever. I think Eleanor would be especially pleased to be on the quarter because there are more people holding quarters than 20s at this moment in American history. Now, economic security was a major focus of hers, so I think she would take issue with such economic inequality. But I do find her remarkable for transforming the loneliness of her difficult childhood into deep empathy for the struggles of others, outside of her class bracket and across racial and political divides, and a commitment to taking those struggles up as her own. And so I think she would be happy to be on the quarter because she wanted to connect to as many people as possible in her life. And now she will be in a lot of pockets, which is pitch perfect for the woman they call the First Lady of the world. Eleanor's leadership style is one I learn from every day. It's empathic, focused on others, and based on a deep understanding of her own position and power in the world. I had the opportunity last weekend to visit the incredible new exhibit at the FDR Library, Black Americans, Civil Rights, and the Roosevelts, and I was struck by how, across her life, relative to the people who brought her their struggles, Eleanor used her position and every tool at her disposal to go to bat for them. I learned in the exhibit exactly how much advocating to FDR she did on behalf of others. She went as his representative into communities to understand the impact of his policies on the ground. She developed deep and personal relationships with women's rights advocates, with Black activists, with workers' rights advocates, with whom she was genuinely friends and to whom she was truly accountable. She was a leader who let herself be publicly taught. She took in new information over time. It changed her mind and her position and her policy work. Eleanor's face being on currency is especially important to me on this year, the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Eleanor believed and codified in the UDHR that everyone has a right to food, clothing, housing, and medical care, a right to security. The word currency seems apt to me today because the United States has still not ratified the Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. And so our history is current and her work is unfinished. And as we spend each quarter with her likeness on its face, I hope each of us will take the opportunity to consider what work it is our own duty to carry forward today to ensure that Eleanor's unified vision for world peace has a chance in our current moment. I so look forward to hearing from our panelists. Thank you for having me. And again, on behalf of the Roosevelt family, we thank you for this honor.
Thank you, Perrin. As I mentioned previously, the U.S. Mint has launched their American Women's Quarter program to elevate and celebrate the amazing women in the history of this country. From Maya Angelou to Anna Mae Wong to Reverend Dr. Polly Murray, who was a close friend to Eleanor. These quarters remind all of us of the incredible contribution that we all have the power to make in our country and the world. It is an honor to have with us today the U.S. Mint's Chief Counsel, John Shorn. Chief Counsel Shorn has worked with the U.S. Mint, the Department of Treasury, and the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. He is a huge fan of Eleanor Roosevelt and specifically asked to be with us today to celebrate this quarter. Before Mr. Shorn comes to the program, we'd like to show a quick video from the Mint.
What does it mean to make change? History is made every day, all around us and within us. Whether we realize it or not, everything we do changes something for someone else, makes a difference for someone else. We show others how to lead, how to grow, and how to make change. The American Women Quarters program from the United States Mint is a celebration of those changes. The 4-year program honors 20 extraordinary women in American history whose diverse stories continue to inspire us today. Each year, 5 new quarters are minted and circulated in their honor. As much as these coins are meant to be collected, the incredible stories behind them are meant to be shared. The American Women Quarters inspire us and remind us that there is greatness in all of us. These women broke the status quo, stood up for their rights, and left a lasting legacy. Their stories are still making change. Take part in the American Women Quarters program. Discover and share their stories.
Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure and a privilege to join you all today in celebrating the release of the Eleanor Roosevelt Quarter. I'd like to thank the Culinary Institute of America for hosting us, as well as the Eleanor Roosevelt family, the National Park Service, and the National Women's History Museum for working with the Mint on this very special event. I'd also like to add a word of thanks to the musicians of Haviland Middle School. Recognizing and honoring women on our nation's coinage is vital because our coins tell the American story, reflecting who we are and what matters to us. For the first time in history, the United States Mint is issuing circulating quarters through a coin program that is solely dedicated to honoring the achievements of American women, with 5 different designs produced annually through 2025. The diverse group of women honored through the American Women Quarters program reflect a wide range of accomplishments and fields. The honorees have shaped our nation's history and helped pave the way for generations that followed. The 8th coin of the American Women Quarters program honors the life and legacy of Eleanor Roosevelt. At the Mint, we see the work we do as connecting America through coins. It is our distinct pleasure to connect Americans to Eleanor Roosevelt, who was well known as a leader, reformer, first lady, and author. As first chairperson of the United Nations Commission on Human Rights, she oversaw the creation of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and ardently advocated for the civil liberties and needs of the poor, minorities, and the disadvantaged. Her advocacy and the leadership role she played in promoting humanitarian efforts continue to be a source of inspiration, motivating so many to continue this important work. The coins that the Mint produces are actually miniature works of art. Our talented pool of artists continually amaze in how they express the values, aspirations, and shared heritage of our nation, all on a canvas the size of a quarter. Designed by Artistic Infusion Program artist Don Everhart and sculpted by United States Mint medallic artist Craig Campbell, the quarter's reverse, or tails, depicts Eleanor Roosevelt and the scales of justice against a backdrop representing the globe, symbolic of her impactful work with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Inscriptions on the coin include United States of America, $quarter, E pluribus unum, Eleanor Roosevelt, and Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Unifying the entire American Women Quarters program is a new obverse, or heads, design, created by one of the most iconic female sculptors of the 20th century, Laura Garden Fraser. The pioneering women who are honored in the American Women Quarters program represent vastly different fields of endeavor, talents, and skills, yet all share a significant commonality. Their contributions were groundbreaking and had a lasting impact on society, and none of them ever settled for the status quo. Like Eleanor Roosevelt, all of our honorees influenced others and paved the way for each new generation. We hope that these coins and these women's stories will inspire you and connect you to the history we all share. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Chief Counsel Shorn. Now we're going to switch gears for a moment and hear from some specialists about their thoughts on Eleanor Roosevelt and her important legacy that she has left behind. The panel will speak together for a few moments, And then they will answer some questions that have been submitted through social media and our students. Moderating today's panel is Jennifer Herrera with the National Women's History Museum. She is joined by Michelle Thompson of the U.S. Mint, Bill Harris from the FDR Presidential Library, and again, Perrin Roosevelt, Ireland. As they are taking their seats, please enjoy hearing from Eleanor Roosevelt herself.
I'm delighted that you could join me today on the program, Mrs. Rose.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Roosevelt. I'm delighted to be here this morning.
How do you say Culinary?
Europeans usually say culinary, and we in America are more apt to call it the culinary.
Well, I'm accustomed to culinary, so I guess that's the way we're going to pronounce it.
My father meant a tremendous amount. I adored him all the days of my childhood. My mother was very beautiful. I think she always wondered why her daughter had to be so ugly. And she would occasionally say that in the Hall family, there were really no ugly ducklings, and I was the exception.
You could move forward. You didn't have to always look backwards and be afraid of moving forward.
We want to see us on the way to wiping out poverty. There will always be some people that will have to be supported, but are we working to see that it's impossible for anyone who wants to have a decent life not to have it? Our trouble is that we take it for granted that everybody understands freedom and wants it. And we don't realize that for, a good third of the world, one of the freedoms that we've forgotten about is the most important freedom, the freedom to eat.
Democracy must prove that it has due consideration for the rights and freedoms of the individual. A Charter of Human Rights can only be written in a land where democracy reigns.
The definition and the acceptance of standards for human rights is probably one of the bases on which we build peace in the world.
Hi everyone, welcome. My name is Jennifer Herrera, and I'm the Vice President of External Affairs for the National Women's History Museum. We are so excited to be here today and see so many people here joining us to celebrate the life and legacy of Eleanor Roosevelt. I want to start by telling you a little bit about our museum. We were founded in 1996, and we've been around for nearly 30 years, and we're the nation's largest cultural institution dedicated to women's history. So we want to make sure everyone can access women's history, either in person or even in your own home. So I hope you can go online when you leave here today and visit our website, which is womenshistory.org, and explore our resources, particularly our biographies. You'll find a wonderful biography of Eleanor on our website. And educators, we also have a lot of information for you, from classroom lesson plans to virtual exhibits, lots of great stuff so you can dig into women's history. And we like to say, Women's History Month is in March, but we celebrate women's history all year long. And it is our true pleasure to serve as consultants to the U.S. Mint on the American Women Quarters program. It's been just a joy. And it is so inspiring to not only work on this program with our colleagues at the Mint, but to see you all here as well, celebrating with us. So with that, I'm going to do some introductions. We're going to start with Perrin, the great-granddaughter of Eleanor. As you know, she spent the last decade, she's the great-granddaughter. She has spent the last decade exploring how animals make a living. She uses line, language, and color to communicate the shocking realities of life on this planet. Her work is a collaboration with the natural world, scientists, and the viewer, whose engagement informs her visual and performance research. She has built an art practice inside scientific and policy institutions, telling stories situated between what we know about the planet and our belonging to it. She began by illustrating a marine biology lab's research at Brown University, while earning a science degree. And from 2012 to 2022, she created watercolor animated videos about climate change, oceans, and endangered animals at the National Resources Defense Council. Her work has appeared at the Franklin Delano Roosevelt Library, Mystic Seaport Museum, Discover Magazine, Nature Magazine, Scientific American, Physics World, and The Rumpus. You can see her work on Instagram or subscribe to her weekly email newsletter, The Thirsty Science. Welcome, Perrin. Next, we have Michelle Thompson, who I've had the pleasure of working with for several years now on this program. Michelle is a classically trained marketing professional with over 20 years of federal and private sector experience in strategy, product development, and program management. Since joining the United States Mint in 2015, she has led numerous strategic marketing initiatives, including the annual holiday and military campaigns, and has been instrumental in developing and implementing a new program management office where she currently serves as chief. Thompson leads the American Women Quarters program, as you heard about earlier, and she earned a master's degree in business administration, focused on brand management from Cornell University, and a bachelor's degree in arts from George Washington University. Welcome, Michelle. Finally, we have William Bill Harris, who served as director of the FDR Library since October 2022. Previously, he served 7 years as deputy director. Bill has spent his career in the archival and museum professions and joined the National Archives and Records Administration in 1996 as an archivist at the George H.W. Bush Presidential Library and Museum in College Station, Texas. He spent over a decade in the Office of Presidential Libraries in Washington, D.C., where he was responsible for new presidential library development and a range of operational and policy activities on behalf of the presidential library system. An Alabama native, Bill received his undergraduate and graduate degrees from Auburn University. So welcome, panel. So glad you're here. Excited to talk with you. So let's start with you, Michelle. I think it would be really great to explain to everyone what the American Women Quarters program is and really how it came about.
Absolutely. Can everyone hear me? I can hear myself, so I'm assuming you guys can too. So the American Women Quarters program is a historic and groundbreaking program. As John Shorin had said earlier, this is the first circulating program solely dedicated to honoring women and their accomplishments. The quarter is the workhorse of the American currency insofar as coins go. We produced over 2.5 billion American women quarters in 2022 alone. So back in 2019, the Mint had a challenge on our hands because our current program, the Beautiful Quarters program, was going to be ending in 2021. Now at the Mint, we just can't change quarters without first having a public law that allows us to make this change. So we wanted to make sure that we were putting something on the back of quarters that would get people excited, that would resonate with America. We started with doing a lot of research. And what we found in our research is that a 12-year program, because we just were finishing up 2 12-year programs, was too long. We met a father during one of our focus groups who said, I started collecting these quarters of the America the Beautiful Quarters program with my daughter when she was 10. By the time it ended, she was 22 and I was collecting quarters by myself. We didn't want to do that again. So we knew that a shorter program was going to be important. But we also started talking to the public about what they would like to see. And this idea of honoring women started to really gain momentum in what we were hearing. So we worked on drafting legislation. It was passed through Congress and it became law. It's Public Law 116-330 for those of you who are interested. And it's the Circulating Collectible Coin Redesign Act of 2020. And it gives the Mint the authorization to create and mint the American Women Quarters program, which runs from 2022 through 2025. Why this is really interesting is that it's actually legislated. It is in the public law that these women should be diverse, ethnically, racially, geographically, across time periods. we really wanted to ensure that we were telling the story of these American women and their accomplishments. So look for, in the next 2.5 years, we've got 2.5 years left, I think, a total of 20 women to be honored through this program on the tails or reverse sides of the quarter.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm going to stick with you for one more question because I think this is a really, probably many people want to know this. Talk about the selection process.
That's a great question. So as you guys can imagine, honoring 20 women is a daunting task because there are so many women who are deserving of this honor, but we can only choose 20. Now, the Mint is fantastic at making coins. We do it all the time. Again, 2.5 billion last year of these quarters alone, but we're not experts on women's history. So through the public law, it authorizes us to work with people who are. And that would be Jen at the National Women's History Museum and all the scholars behind her, as well as the Smithsonian American Women's History Museum. And then we also consult with the Bipartisan Women's Caucus. In addition to working with these groups, we also held a web portal that the National Women's History Museum hosted for us to get recommendations from the general public. We received in less than 6 weeks over 11,000 submissions. People were excited. They wanted to put in their recommendations on who we should honor in this unique program. So we take all of these recommendations, we look at those, we listen to the scholars, and ultimately a list of recommended honorees is sent over to the Secretary of the Treasury, Janet Yellen, and ultimately it is Janet Yellen who makes the decision on who to honor.
Thank you. I'm curious, has anybody seen any of the new coins from this year yet in the audience? Yes? So far, we had Edith Kanaka-Ole, and we had Bessie Coleman. And so this is the third coin this year. So, Perrin, I wanted to ask you, as the great-granddaughter of Eleanor, what does this quarter mean to you and the rest of the family? And tell us what it was like to get the phone call that Eleanor is going to be on a quarter.
Well, I know my mother, Nancy Roosevelt Ireland, has been working with you all on this for a couple of years. And I know that this has been a long process, and there's been a lot of conversation about women's history being represented on currency. And so for a few years, there have been sort of murmurs that Eleanor might be someone that would be considered. And I feel so excited that this massive life and everything that she did to transform our understanding of the roles that women can play in civil society and in government, and also her human rights legacy will have the chance to be extended. And I was talking to Michelle before we started, and she was talking about how the lifetime of a coin is 30 years. And to think about that extension for at least another 30 years of the freshness of that legacy is very moving to me and exciting. And so it's just such a joy to imagine so much kind of touching of her image and participation in that going forward.
Thank you, Perrin. Bill, many of the first ladies throughout U.S. history, are remembered in relation to their husbands. But Eleanor Roosevelt often assumes a more individualized identity in the national imagination. What qualities, accomplishments, or experiences of Eleanor Roosevelt contributed to her status as a national symbol?
Well, I would give 2 words, I think, thinking about that question. One you've heard already, empathy, and, well, 3 words. The other one is hard work. Because between the two, she was able to use the platform that she had to promote and advocate for people all across this country and the world. It's important to think about the role of the First Lady before Eleanor Roosevelt and the role of the First Lady after. I would say that the 12 years she was in that role, that it is a remarkable period unlike any other tenure of a First Lady, because she had her own career. She had her own career writing a daily newspaper column She had weekly sponsored radio programs, which for the young folks out there was tantamount to a major social media presence, let's say. And she used those platforms even separate than what the administration wanted to accomplish, far beyond actually what the administration was attempting to accomplish, to advance individual rights in recognition of every individual's human dignity, and to advocate for those who did not always have a place in our social, economic, and political life. So it's just remarkable when you look at the expanse of her impact during those 12 years and then in the years following President Roosevelt's death.
Thank you. And to expand a little bit on this, can you talk a little bit about her work at the United Nations and what the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is? I'm actually curious, how many people know, especially the students, have heard of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights? Great, that's wonderful.
That is wonderful.
So, yeah, Bill, please.
Well, when she began her work with the United Nations, which was the same year that President Roosevelt died, President Truman appointed her as a delegate to the United Nations, and she remained as a representative throughout President Truman's tenure in office. And the following year, she assumed, 1946, the chairmanship, listen at me, the chairwomanship of the Commission for Human Rights. Now, I think that was viewed probably by President Truman and others as sort of an honorific activity, that as the widow of FDR, that it would be a nice thing to do. Well, Mrs. Roosevelt never, ever was assigned a task or assumed a responsibility without using that and getting to work and putting others to work. So the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, within the context of its times, grew out of the end of World War II and the horrific tragedies visited upon the world, especially upon the civilian world. And the traumas and atrocities of that era really sparked a recognition that already existed individually amongst activists and those concerned with the social welfare, that the rights of each individual need to be respected, they need to be codified, and they need to be accepted by nations around the world. In a way, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which Mrs. Roosevelt helped write, along with representatives from around the world, it transcends nation states, the idea of borders, because human dignity and our basic individual existence is beyond nation states. So the Universal Declaration of Human Rights drew upon, the creeds and faiths from around the world of certain, political rights that have been bestowed upon people, and attempted to distill those down in a way that are reflective of populations around the world. And so she advocated for that. No one thought that would pass the General Assembly. There was much view that it was, and even within our country, that it was too far-reaching, that it would reduce the power of world leaders. But her advocacy and her work, not just through formal committee meetings, but hosting events at her home in New York City, or just simply engaging representatives individually, people from new nations, but post-colonial nations who had never had a voice, by engaging them and working with her colleagues at the United Nations. And it won passage, in much to everyone's surprise, in the United Nations.
Thank you so much. I think you can see in your program a picture of Eleanor holding the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Perrin, what inspires you most about your great-grandmother's legacy?
Oh my goodness. It's hard to pick one thing. I think another word Michelle used to describe the quarter is this idea of it being the workhorse. And as Bill also referenced, I mean, looking at her daily diaries, it seems that she was also a witch who was bending time of like, I don't have that many hours in the day. I don't know what she did with the 24-hour unit, but she was really packing it. And so just the amount of work, and I think part of that work that inspires me is her belief and commitment in participation. She really showed up, she kept showing up, and whether that was, you know, being a person who moved towards people that challenged her. So when FDR would get hot and fiery letters of protest, he showed them to Eleanor, and Eleanor often wrote those people back and wanted to learn more. And that is such a guiding light for me in any form of activism or participating in the world, that we actually listen to the dissenters and we ask them more about what their point is. The other thing that moves me about her legacy is her Aunt Edith, I guess, wrote in a letter about her when she was a child. She doesn't have much of a chance, the poor dear, because Eleanor had this really brutal childhood, just, you know, one loss after another. And to hear that way of describing the child who would go on to become Eleanor Roosevelt, anything is possible for any of us. And it's so moving to me that she went from those experiences into this person who, you know, to go through that and believe more deeply in people is just an incredible way to be in the world. And so that to me is such a rich part of her legacy, how it started and who she became.
Thank you so much. Michelle, can you talk a little bit about why it's important to see women on currency?
Absolutely. So when you think about a nation's currency, and specifically a coin really should reflect the heritage of our nation and what's important, what matters to us. When you see them uncover coins from 2,000 years ago, you see what was important to that society. And the fact of the matter is that women have been severely underrepresented on US circulating coins. Now, we have had mythical features of Lady Liberty since the 1790s, but there have been very few named women on circulating coins. There was the Sacagawea dollar, there was the Susan B. Anthony dollar. Helen Keller was on the back of an America the Beautiful quarter. And there have also been women on numismatic or collectible coins. But we've never had and I keep stressing this because this is groundbreaking, we've never had a circulating program. And by circulating, I mean, these are the quarters you're going to get in your change when you make purchases. Someone had said earlier about laundromats and all the different places where you use quarters. These are out there for people to see. And when you or your descendant or your descendant's descendant find one of these quarters years from now and turn it over and see a woman on the back of it, you realize that women matter. And I don't think that's something that we have recognized often enough.
A follow-up question to that, and not specific to the Eleanor coin necessarily, but to all of the coins, what is represented on each quarter in terms of the design? Like, what is the image trying to convey?
All of these are different because these women have each shown something remarkable. But they're also similar because they show determination. They show their tenacity. It is so easy, even today, kids, you know how easy it is to get lost in social media for the day or playing video games. I do that sometimes too. But these are women who didn't, who sought to improve not only their lives, but the lives of people around them. And that's what these designs try to convey. When you look at the Eleanor Roosevelt coin, and it's absolutely stunning, the scales of justice, the fact that there's the globe behind her. One of the inscriptions on the coin, choosing the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, was important because we want people to see this and want to find more information about her. She wasn't selected because she was a first lady. You know, there is nothing on this coin that says First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt. She was selected because she was a leader. She was a fighter. She was an inspiration. And that's what we want to capture in the designs of these quarters.
One of the treats for us at the National Women's History Museum is just seeing the coins when you release the designs and seeing, oh, what is that coin going to be? It's really neat. And they're just so beautiful, just so beautiful. Before we close, I have one more question for Bill, but I do want to thank the Culinary Institute of America and our wonderful partners on this event. It's just such an honor to be here, so thank you all. Bill, can you talk a little bit about how people can learn more about Eleanor Roosevelt?
Oh, absolutely. Just a couple of miles up the road here is the Presidential Library, Franklin D. Roosevelt Presidential Library, which we sometimes think should be the Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt Library because of her role in world history. And there we hold all the evidence, the millions of pages of documents that she both created and that came across her desk, which evidence this engagement with people from all walks of life. She would treat a letter from just a regular, everyday person in need just as importantly as she would treat a world leader's letter. In fact, in the papers, they're in the general correspondence, it'll be A through B, B through C, and you get through the letters and you get to princesses and then up to Q, and there's queens. So they're just filed in there with the rest of the general correspondence. And I think that evidence is a great deal about her thinking. So up at the library and where the research is conducted, and that forms the basis for the books that are out there, you can feel like the quarter. It's tangible and it's real, and you can appreciate her work and her role.
Thank you so much. Panel, thank you. Thank you all again for joining us. I'll turn it back over.
Thank you. And now we'll have a musical selection from Haviland. Wow, very nice. I will now hand the program over to Michelle Thompson from the U.S. Mint to introduce and set up our next very special activity.
Thank you, Amy. And what a beautiful piece. Thank you, Hyde Park Middle School. So we are nearly at the end of today's ceremony. But there's one more thing we'd like to do today, and this is a coin pour. We have brought with us 2,000 quarters that are going to be poured into this beautiful display that you see on stage here. The suitcases and books are symbolic of Eleanor Roosevelt's prolific writing and traveling. The image you see behind me, well, there we go. Magic. The image you see behind me is in fact a photo of Mrs. Roosevelt carrying her suitcase at LaGuardia Airport in New York. It was taken by Lawrence W. Jordan in 1960. As she traveled the globe, meeting with people who were different than her, learning from them, and putting change into action based upon her experiences, this inspirational woman knew she had influence, and she used all the platforms available to help her spread her message of inclusion, acceptance, civil rights, and social change. It is with great pleasure that we present to you the new Eleanor Roosevelt Quarter. Coin pour. All right, do we want to do a countdown? Participants ready? Places? 3, 2, 1, pour them in. But wait, there's more. This is my favorite part of these programs because I am excited to share that we also brought a little something for all of you. As you exit the event today, you will receive a coin board to collect all 5 American Women Quarters for 2023. And you'll notice we've already put in the Eleanor Roosevelt Quarter for you. Just so everyone knows, these were just released to the Federal Reserve Bank earlier this week on the 5th. So you're not going to see these in circulation for about another 3 to 4 weeks. You guys are the first to have these. That's really cool. At this point, thank you very much. I am going to turn the program back over to Superintendent Bracewell, who is going to give you some exit instructions. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, everyone. This is really exciting. And I, again, am honored to be here to launch this new quarter. A couple of things. I want to just take a moment to say thank you to the National Park Service staff who have been behind the scenes helping around, along with the FDR Presidential Library staff, the Culinary Institute, and the U.S. Mint staff. Thank you, everyone, for helping. Teachers and parents, I want to highlight that there are tables in the lobby with coloring books, stickers, all sorts of good material for you to grab as you're heading out. I want to thank everyone for being here today to ceremoniously launch the Eleanor Roosevelt Quarter into distribution. Her quarters, as Michelle said, are making their way into every corner of the country, into the hands of people in grocery stores, banks, laundromats, gumball machines. Do we still have gumball machines? Okay. Do we? Shortly, everyone here today will be receiving their own quarter. This is a special treat for us, and as Michelle said, we are probably the first people to get this quarter. I encourage you to keep your quarter in a safe place. You're free to spend it, but it's also very special for today. When you hold it, I hope it reminds you of Eleanor's passion for human rights. When you look at your quarter, think about what you can do to share kindness and inclusion to your neighbors. How can you think like Eleanor and make a difference in the world? It can be closer to home, in your neighborhood, at your school. Take a moment every day to show kindness to other human beings. I'm going to ask all of the schools to sit tight at the end of this program. We're going to release you by row and hand out your coins and your bookmarks by row. So stay put, and we'll give you further instructions. The middle school, you have your coins. I believe we got yours packaged up. And for our general audience, we have National Park Service rangers and employees at the exits with your quarters. So make sure you stop by and find one of them for your quarters and bookmarks. I want to thank you again, everyone, for being here today to celebrate Eleanor's legacy and this landmark moment for the new United States Quarter. Thank you very much.